Hey listeners, welcome to another episode of the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. My name is Crystal Mizuka. I am part of the Hi-Fi team, and I am joined with my good friends and incredible teammates, Rachel Raquelme and Jeremy Carroll. We are super excited as we are jumping into a new truth and new themes for the month of March. Preschool, you are going to get to enjoy the big deal of Ready, Set, Grow as we talk about how God wants me to know Him. And kids, we are all about plugging in. So our theme is plugged in as we teach the truth. I am meant to know God. Our theme verse for kids is, "This is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and the one you have sent, Jesus Christ," which is John 17:3. Preschool is pretty similar, just a little bit shorter, "That they may know you, the only true God, and the one you have sent, Jesus Christ," John 17:3. So we are really looking forward to getting into our content for this first week of March. But before we do, we always like to start with a fun icebreaker question, get to know our team a little bit better. But it's also a great way for you to ask these questions to your teammates, to your families, and just have fun conversation all around. So, Jeremy, Rachel, here is your question. What are some things about yourself that people learn only after they really get to know you?
I'll go. I don't know why I find this question so tough, Crystal. But I don't know. I was trying to think of a couple different things. And I don't know. The first thing I thought of was maybe that I really like golf and I grew up playing golf. Because that's not something that comes up just in daily conversation.
I had no idea.
But then the other thing,
And
I
that's what
thought
we're
of,
talking about. We don't.
Makes me feel like I don't know you at all. I didn't know you like golf. That's
no, you do know
crazy.
me. It just has never come up. There's never been any need to talk about that. And then the other thing I think that you know is that I love bike racing, and I'm obsessed with like the Tour de France and watching different bike races with my family. So again, two things that I love, but they don't just come up in everyday conversation.
Okay, that's interesting. My son's a big golfer, so if
That's
you're
awesome.
ever in Washington or he's ever in Kentucky, maybe you guys could go out and hit the links. Is that what you say? Go to the,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, I
I'm
don't play
I'm
golf.
terrible now at golf because I don't play enough, to be
Yeah,
good anymore, but I still enjoy it.
interesting. All right. Jeremy, how about you?
Like Rachel, I find this to be an extremely difficult question to think about because I don't know what things are. I don't know. I guess here I'll go this. So I just have come off the road of a month of traveling with our VBS team here at Lifeway, and one of the things that always comes up when I travel with that team in particular, but also when I've traveled with you all, is you all like to use the word picky eater. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a little more selective in my taste palette than some, and it's so if we're just passing each other in the hallway, if we just just hanging out casually, that's probably not something that's going to come up. But people who spend time with me know that there are things that I like and there are things that I don't like, and that's just the way it is. So that's probably something for me, is that I have a pretty bland taste palette, and I'm okay with it, and I'm
Mm,
content with that. Whether y'all like it or
yeah.
not, I'm okay with it. Um, but yeah, that's probably one thing about me.
That's funny. What I would have said about you, Jeremy, is that the more people get to know you, you're a little bit of a prankster. You like to kid, you like to joke, you definitely like to play pranks on people.
Yeah,
Very,
that's a
very
good one.
nice, innocent pranks, but yes, you are a prankster, but I think you would only prank people that you know well.
That is
Well,
that is very true, Crystal. That I am not going to do something to somebody that I don't know well. Um, and I'm not always like, how can I get somebody? But yeah, there are moments where I just have these things that pass through my head. And listeners, perhaps you've walked by a hi-fi booth and seen Crystal looking around frantically, and it's because I might have hidden her water bottle and she doesn't know where it's at. And
All
so
the time.
but yeah, that's something I do because I feel like I know you well, and that you'll, for the most part, take it well unless you're trying to get somewhere. So yeah, that's actually a good one. Good call out on that.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
fun.
Yep. It's pretty fun. I was thinking about that for you and for Rachel. I was more thinking that like you're kind of a quiet person when I think when people first like get to know you. But man, your sense of humor, I don't think I've ever met anybody who loves laughing as much as you. Like you
So
just
true.
you love watching funny things, you love hearing funny stories, and I feel like you just love to laugh. And also, I will say you're an easy laugh. And so, as somebody who likes making people laugh, I love
Yeah,
talking to
that's
you
true.
because I'm like, she builds my confidence. She makes me feel like I'm the funniest person in the world. Anyways, the reason why we kind of asked that question, though, in context of this month, is we are talking about how God made us to know Him, and to know somebody takes time. It isn't something that can happen in an instant. You don't come to church one time, you don't read a Bible story one time, and you're like, I got it, I know God. It is actually something that takes time, and that's a great thing. The longer we walk with the Lord, the more we know Him, the more we get to know Him. And so, thinking of that specifically, Rachel, I'd love to ask you this question. I'll also toss it out there for you listeners. This is the blog that you would have gotten this month with your training materials. Rachel wrote it. It's great. So I thought she's a great person to answer this question. Rachel, how would you describe the difference between knowing about God and knowing God? And why does this matter for preschoolers and kids?
Yeah. I think the first thing to acknowledge when we talk about knowing about God and knowing God is that we can have so many kids in our ministries who can tell you all about what they've learned, all about the Bible
Mm,
story, the simple
hmm
truth. They can make those connections intellectually, but haven't yet given their life to Jesus. They don't yet actually know God and have a relationship with Him. And so one thing we want to really lift high as we think about this month is that we want to talk about how we do know God, how we have a relationship with Him, how we um, have that just that incredible connection with Him through Jesus. Because we don't want kids to leave this month just knowing facts about God or information about God, because that doesn't change us. But actually knowing
mm,
God is what changes everything for us. And so we really want to make sure as we talk about knowing God, we're lifting high the gospel. And that's how we originally have and form a relationship with God.
hmm
Um, the next thing is that as we know God, we begin to know His character. We begin to
hmm
know ways we can grow closer to Him, ways we can know Him more. And that is such a sweet thing to talk about, this truth about how um it's more. Knowing God is more than Sundays, it's more than Wednesdays, it's more than just
hmm
participating at church, but it's about but it's about being changed by God in that relationship, um and just going deeper with it, because it changes what we want, it changes what we do, it changes our priorities. Knowing God changes everything, and
hmm
it's more than just information and knowledge, but it really changes us from the inside out. And we really want to talk about how we don't just want them to learn facts this month
hmm
about who
Yeah.
God is, but we really want them to truly know God.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for just lifting high the heart of this truth and why it matters and why it's important. And so, Jeremy, our Bible story this week is from Isaiah 6. And so, could you maybe like just really quick give an overview of that story for our listeners, but also share like what can preschoolers and kids learn from Isaiah's like recognition of God's holiness and God's response to Isaiah in this Bible story?
Yeah, this is gonna be one of those stories that as adults we may be very familiar with. We may have heard this. We may have heard it preached many times. So this may be one of those stories that we know as adults, maybe a little bit more so than our preschoolers and our kids. And and maybe even some of our volunteers, they just may not know this story, and they may not even, like, when they read it, they go, "Oh, I don't know the significance here." And so, just as we go into this week, thinking about that, knowing that um, this may be some of the details here may catch some of your kids, your preschoolers off guard, like the descriptions of the heavenly beings. They talked about wings and all these things, and some of your preschoolers and kids, they may get really kind of fixated on that. And so just knowing that they may be hearing something like this for the very first time, these bizarre descriptions, and you may be more familiar with it. So just know that going into it, just kind of keep your eyes and ears open to what your preschoolers and kids are listening to and what they're hearing maybe for the very first time. But this picture we get in Isaiah 6 is really an amazing one. In fact, when I was in seminary, my worship class, the professor I had built pretty much the entire syllabus off of this one chapter, this one passage in Isaiah. It was very intense, and so there's really a lot of power packed in this story. So we find ourselves, Isaiah introduces, hey, that he saw the Lord lifted up, high and lifted up. And he gets this vision into the throne room of God, as it were. And it says that God's presence, it was above everything, and it was filling the temple. And then there are these introduction of these seraphim, these heavenly beings that have 6 wings. And that's what I was talking about a second ago. I mean, it's going to describe these wings, but more so than their description, which is often what our preschoolers and kids may get fixated on, is what they were saying as they were going around the throne of God. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. His glory fills the whole earth. And this perspective that these heavenly beings, their primary job, at least in this moment, was to offer worship and praise to God, calling him holy, holy, holy. And so we get this. So Isaiah gets this picture. So we get this picture through Isaiah of these heavenly creatures who are worshiping God in his throne room. It says they spoke, and it says Isaiah noticed that the temple shook, and there was this smoke that filled. And Isaiah had this moment of what we would call conviction, sort of in our Christian language today. He had this moment where he recognized the holiness of God and all of the majesty he was setting his eyes on. And his response was, "I am ruined. I don't deserve to be in the presence of God. I have nothing to do here. I have nothing good that I can offer to the King of everything. He is great and holy." And the seraphim then come and place a coal on Isaiah's mouth, and this what was spoken over Isaiah was that your guilt is gone and your sin is wiped away. And this picture of the gospel happening in this heavenly place, this picture of the gospel is where we all come to. We all come to this place of needing to see the holiness and majesty of God, recognizing that we are in fact a broken and sinful person, and we need God's forgiveness to go forward and to make our path forward. And so we see this in Isaiah. God then speaks to Isaiah after this recognition of his own guilt, and the sin was wiped away. God speaks to Isaiah and says, "Who will go? Who will go for us? Who will I send?" Isaiah's response in this new guilt-free moment says, "I will go. Send me. Let me, Lord, now be a useful tool in your hand." And then God sort of offers that new assignment to Isaiah of this prophet, being a prophet for God, that he would go and tell people of the goodness and the holiness of God. And so we see that's sort of the story, sort of a little bit, maybe it's a big nutshell, but a little bit of a nutshell. And we see this in this story. So there's a lot packed into what seems like maybe a pass-by story. There's a lot going on here. But what we want to help preschoolers and kids to start to see, preschoolers start to get a glimpse of, younger elementary start to get a glimpse of, older kids are going to be able to get deeper pictures here of this juxtaposition of God's holiness and our guiltiness. And we see this in Isaiah's response. And really that's what we want to help kids and preschoolers start to see is this perspective that God is mighty, he's holy, he's high and lifted up, but he still his being in this case reached out and offered this forgiveness by touching the coal on Isaiah's mouth. God reached out, God initiated this relational moment of connection through his seraphim, and he did that and then offers to bring Isaiah in. And that's the same offering that we have as we get to have this personal, intimate knowledge and relationship with God.
Yeah, it's so incredible. And what's great about this is we get to speak about the bigness of God, right? Like God is holy, which means that he is set apart and different than anything and anyone else. And yet he invites us to know him, which kind of leads to the last question. So Jeremy, you mentioned like preschoolers and kids can maybe fixate on parts of the story that they don't need to, like, what is a seraphim? What does it look like?
Yeah.
What is it doing? Was it actually cool? What did the temple look like? And we want kids to be able to wonder and ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the heart of this is that God is holy and set apart, and yet he is knowable. He's not just knowable, like he wants us to know him. So, Rachel and Jeremy, what are some practical tips maybe that you have, or some ways that we can help preschoolers and kids understand God's holy set apartness, but also understand that he is close and personal?
Well, as you were saying that, Crystal, it made me think of something, and it's so silly, but it made me think of when I was a kid, and I can remember one of the first times that I think, understood how set apart and how big God is. And my mom, we were talking about something we learned in church, um, and I had said to my mom, it makes me feel like I need to like jump up and down and stick my arms out and make it so God can see me, because he's just so big and he's so grand. And I remember her telling me, but you don't have to do that. He knows you. You can talk to him, directly to him. And I just remember I was very young when we had that conversation, but it really stuck out to me to think that this huge God that made everything, that is completely different from me, still wants to know me. And I think it's such an incredible thing to have conversations with our kids and our preschoolers this week about how God is holy. He is just, it's sometimes unfathomable, as we try to think about how big he is and how incredible he is, but he knows their names. He wants to know them and have a relationship with them, and he wants to hear from them. And I just think having those conversations and putting that into perspective, with kids and preschoolers, I think it's just really important and really powerful, so that they know they don't have to make themselves big. They don't have to jump up and down, that God knows them. He knows their name, and he wants a relationship with them.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. So that was a very good practical tip. Let me kind of zoom out and think of from and this may not be your question, Crystal, and I apologize, but
It's okay.
just thinking of in terms of how do we model this as leaders. I recently we visited a church, and the pastor himself was not saying this, but he made this comment. And I hope this doesn't offend listeners, any of you. I don't know that it will, but the pastor said, "God is my homie," and it really struck a couple of my kids as really irreverent. And then one of my kids, he was like, well, yeah, like God is our friend and he wants to be close to us. And I saw in that moment just a few weeks ago, this moment of in my own family with my teenagers having this conversation around the thing that bothered some of my kids, my girls in particular, about this is it lost the holiness and majesty of God,
Yeah.
to reduce God to that sort of language. The thing my son was captivated by is the fact that God's close and personal. And so I think the way, and this is not to disparage anybody who uses any particular language, but the way that we pray in front of our kids, the way that we talk about God in front of our kids, the language we choose to use and model often will have an impact in the preschoolers and kids we use in their picture of God. And so
Mm-hmm.
are we striking a balance, a very healthy balance in how we talk about God and his holiness and his set apartness, at the same time talking about how close and personal he is. The language we choose, again, even in our prayers, sometimes will model for kids how to have that healthy balance in that relationship. And so that's one of the things that I would encourage us to just be thoughtful around. When we pray out loud in front of a group with our kids, that's not the same kind of prayer. I would say, this is a Jeremy opinion, but not the same kind of prayer as when I'm at home in my private place praying to God.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so while I might use some particular language when I'm um, more personal language when I feel like I am in a quiet time, cuddled up in the lap of my father, when I'm standing before a group of people, I might not use that same kind of language around the close personalness of God. I might be more apt to lean, just me personally, toward the bigness of God. And so I'm not saying one of those things is right or wrong. The point here is how we talk about God in our day-to-day ministry activities with kids and preschoolers and our volunteers will oftentimes communicate more about what we think about God than just what we're teaching.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you both so much just for your insight on this week as we get to teach preschoolers and kids that God is holy. He is set apart. He is different. He is special. And yet we can know him personally, relationally, and that's just really cool. So, listeners, we're glad that you joined us. We hope that you'll tune in again next week. Kayla's going to join Rachel and I as we talk about how God never changes, going through a lot of the Bible, which will be incredible and fun. Until then, please make sure that you've joined us in our Facebook community. We'd love to hear from you, see pictures, celebrate with you what God is doing in and through your ministry. And until then, enjoy creating a real connection and true belonging.